Now, there was a lighter side to Ross and Val. They didn't take themselves too seriously most times. So I've been given the honor of relating Val's story to you. Now, this is in her words. Ross was born in Warrnambool on the 13th of May, 1947, to George and Nita Powell. He was a little brother for Maria. He was raised on the family farm in Coromandel. His father had started this farm in 1939 by clearing it from virgin bush. Eventually, they became very, very successful sheep farmers. Not making much money, but just enough to support the local stock agents. Ross attended the new Timboon Consolidated School, but left in 1963 at the age of 16. In that year, he was busy helping his father clear more land, but his passion was always the sea. He was a keen surfer and spent many hours retrieving his 16-foot wooden mall surfboard from the caves at Beacon Steps. It was the same location where the Brushall's family had lost their lives 5 years earlier. That incident spurred the community into forming two rescue organizations, the Cliff Rescue Squad, and later in 1964, the Port Campbell Surf Life-Saving Club. Ross was one of the 20 inaugural members who gained the bronze medallion. He was also a founding member of the Timboon Apex Club and Port Campbell Farm Discussion Group, a member of Scotts Creek CFA and Port Campbell Cliff Rescue Squad, which later became the SES. When the new members decided that Port Campbell would specialize in surfboat rowing, Ross got two crews up and running by sweeping one and rowing in the other. Port Campbell soon had a reputation at carnivals. Not always a good one. When Jared Vogel supplied a cattle truck to tow the surfboat to carnivals, they fully enclosed the crate with tarpaulins for the competitors' comfort and stocked it up with plenty of fluids for the trip home. Because there was a rule, no fluids until all is packed up off the beach. The Port Campbell boaties were always the quickest off the beach. Times were tough on the farm, so he supplemented his income by becoming a shearer. This was the first time he had any real money, and he was able to buy his first brand new people mover, a white Holden panel van that included all the necessary accessories that make life comfortable for his mates. They became so good at organizing that rather than taking an esky, they would always bring a keg of beer to the cabarets. I can't mention the number of times he milked the cows in his suit. I feel that some of the laws that are in place today are because of the crazy antics of Poe and his mates. I met Ross in this hall in 1973. I was 20 at a Heytesbury football cabaret. My first experience of a surf carnival was at Newfield Bay that same year. They said Ross was to sweep the boat, but it wasn't until Robin Chamberlain, known as Stretch, picked me up and threw me in the surf boat, I worked out that sweeping had nothing to do with a broom. I spent the rest of the day in the boat with the boat crew, monitoring the surf boats as they went around the cans. With OH&S, probably wouldn't happen nowadays. Fundraising for the surf club was another important part of Ross's life. This involved many activities such as bonfire nights and woolshed dues. Once the club ran a bed race from Timboon to Port Campbell on hospital beds with other local clubs. Later on, there were 2 mystery train trips, veal and venison night at Ralph's, German fests at Schultz's, and the odd gambling night at Poe's Den. The Heytesbury settlement was up and running by the late 1960s. Ross noted a lot of new cars were traveling past the farm. When he realized they belonged to dairy farmers, he suggested to his father that they start milking cows. His father was concerned because he'd milked a house cow for the greater part of his young life and he didn't want to do it again. So the Department of Agriculture helped Ross design a one-man 8-unit dairy with cup removers in 1961. In 1975, we got married, and our life together on the farm began with 80 beef, 200 sheep, and 140 dairy cows. Later that year, we increased the herd to 200 and extended the dairy to 14 units. Dairy milk was at a low ebb, and we began investigating a 40-unit rotary. After Ross broke his back New Year's Eve, we sold the beef and sheep and purchased 200 heifers and began milking 400 cows in July in 1976. At this point, I asked, where was it going to stop? I'm not that expensive to keep. Over the years, Ross worked with many people in the Department of Ag. He was always wanting to learn more, and they were always learning from him. There were many discussions around the table with Peter Haynes, Chris Hibbert, and many others talking about drainage and stock feed, etc. I could make a batch of scones in 2 minutes in the microwave. This became necessary because I never got much notice. Our 43 years of marriage has been the happiest of my life. We raised 5 beautiful children, Brett, Natalie, Dale, Karen, and Andrew. I realized we must have had a brief weekend off before calving because 3 of them were born in March. I always had to share Ross with so many people that I called myself his lady-in-waiting. So when we were invited to a Lely farm trip to Holland recently, I felt very privileged to have one-on-one time with my workaholic husband. He promised me that one day he would retire, but just not yet. We worked as a team. We started off as drinking mates, supported each other's lives, and became soulmates. We had one agreement, which was I wouldn't go into the sea with him, and he wouldn't have to go onto the stage with me. And it all worked out very well. Andy was a beautiful baby who was loved by us all. When you have 5 children, there's always lots to do. And Ross was happy to have Andy at his side from an early age. Ross never had any trouble putting baby Andy to bed. I would often come home and find them sleeping together in one bed. They were so close in every way, I fondly called them the twins. The Surf Club, SES, and District have all suffered a great loss. Andy and Poe were such valuable contributors to the community. They gave so much of themselves and never expected anything in return. I realize that that is why there are so many people here today. I'm so grateful that Andy found Amber. She will always be a part of my life. I have lost 2 loving and beautiful people, Andy and Poe. They will be missed greatly by all. It has been such a waste. And now I ask that to continue their legacy, you show kindness to each other. Thank you.